How to make anything online. Design hacking. In this module, I am going to teach you how to make anything online fast. I am going to give you a crash course in design hacking so that next time you need to create a presentation, design an infographic, build a website, prototype your app, or even make a short video animation, you'll be able to do all of it yourself. Are you ready? Right, let's get started. The first step is purchasing an Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop license. 5 years ago, I learned how to use Illustrator and Photoshop the hard way by suffering through hours of painfully tedious Linda videos that explain every single Adobe feature very slowly and repetitively. Photoshop and Illustrator have literally thousands of features. 90% of those features are either so obvious they don't need to be explained, or they are so specialist that you'll probably never even need to use them. My goal is to show you the stuff that really matters. The first point to cover is the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. Photoshop is a pixel program, which is great for editing photos. However, if you want to do pretty much anything else, like creating infographics, illustrations, diagrams, and logos, then Illustrator is a much more effective tool. Using Illustrator is a lot like using PowerPoint or Keynote. The key difference is that you have a lot more freedom and flexibility. You can use Illustrator for almost anything: brainstorming, mind mapping, creating video slides, prototyping websites, designing logos, and more. It's pretty powerful. Also, on Illustrator, you have unlimited undos. This is not the case for Photoshop, which is another reason why I recommend you to use Illustrator for the majority of your design work. Right, let's dive into the essential features of Adobe Illustrator. When you open Illustrator for the first time, follow these 2 steps. Step 1. Go to the Illustrator menu bar, select Preferences, and then General. A pop-up will appear. Select Scale Strokes and Effects. This basically means when you make shapes and text bigger on your canvas, the line weight and font size will stay the same. Trust me, this is a real time saver. The next step is to go to the User Interface Preferences and set the brightness to light gray. I find it's much easier for your eyes to be working on a lighter canvas. Step 2 is laying out your workspace. Go to Window and keep selecting the following items: Artboard, Gradient, Pathfinder, Transform, Align, and Levels is kind of optional. Then arrange your workspace like this: Artboards at the top, then Pathfinder, then Align, and finally Gradient on the right hand side. When you are happy with your workspace, go to Window, Workspace, New Workspace to save your workspace layout. You will then be able to access and reload this layout at any time with a single click. Right, now on to drawing and selecting shapes. The V, Black Selection tool, is for selecting and moving shapes and objects. The A, White Selection tool, is for modifying shapes and objects. Use Alt-Z click to zoom out and Z-click to zoom in. Use spacebar or your touchpad for panning across the canvas. For copying and pasting, just use Command-C, Command-V as normal. You can also hold the Alt key while moving a shape to copy it. You can then use Command-D to repeat the same exact Alt-copy move. When it comes to drawing shapes, you have 3 options. Option 1. You can select the shape tool you want by either going to the left toolbar or by using the keyboard shortcut M for rectangles and L for circles. You can hold Shift for perfect symmetry and use spacebar for moving the entire shape. Option 2. To draw an exact shape, select your shape tool and click once on the empty canvas. You will activate a pop-up box where you can set specific dimensions and properties for your shape. The third and final way to create a shape is by using the P pen tool. This is great for drawing irregular shapes. To create curves within your shape, just click and drag when creating an anchor point. You can also edit all the anchor points you draw with the pen tool by using the A white selection tool. Every shape you draw is made up of a border called the stroke and an inside area called the fill. You can edit colors and line weight on the top menu bar. You can also select a color by dragging in any photo or image file and using the eyedropper tool. When dragging a photo into Illustrator, make sure you select Embed to save that image within the document. It can also be fun to experiment with Live Trace, which turns your photo into a shape instantly. To get the exact hex code from an object or image, double-click the large color icons on the left toolbar and copy the color code from the pop-up box. To speed up your workflow, you can save any color you have selected as a swatch. This is especially useful when using the gradient tool. There are only a few more things you need to be aware of when it comes to editing and adjusting shapes. The first is the Pathfinder toolbox, which is all about combining shapes to create new shapes. There are two tools that are most useful: join and cut. When you cut multiple shapes, they are automatically grouped. To ungroup them, just press Command-Shift-G on your keyboard. To group them back together, it's just Command-G. Occasionally, you might press Command-Shift-H or Command-H by accident, which switches you to a weird canvas view or selection preference. Just repeat the same keyboard shortcut Command-Shift-H and Command-H to undo that change. Another feature that is explained extensively on lynda.com tutorials is the layer tool. I find it's much more intuitive to forget about layers and just use the old-fashioned click and drag technique to group and move objects around. When you select objects, you can use Command-Shift close bracket to bring those selected objects to the front of the canvas. And then you can use the keyboard shortcut Command-Shift open bracket to send them to the back. It's also worth mentioning the rotate, reflect, and align tools. They work pretty much the same way as they do on PowerPoint and Keynote. If you want to cut a shape, you can use the keyboard shortcut C, and then click on the border of your shape. To smooth a curve on a shape, select the Smooth tool, and just click and drag over your shape. It's that simple. So, now we've covered pretty much all you need to know when it comes to drawing shapes and objects on Illustrator. With the tools that I have just explained, you can create pretty much any illustration you want. Take this fox for example. Drag in the photo, draw some shapes using the pen tool. You can use the Pathfinder tools to save time by cutting and joining the shapes. Then, you can use the eyedropper tool to get your colors right. Right, now on to working with text and creating logos. There are two ways to create text. Select T for the text tool and click on the shape, curve, or line you have just drawn. Alternatively, you can just click on any empty space on your canvas and just start typing. It is also worth noting that you can convert text into a shape. Just select your text, go to Object in the menu bar, then select Expand and OK. You can do the same thing with shapes to turn the stroke or border into its own shape. Sometimes you may need to select Expand Appearance first, and then expand to get your desired shape. One trick with logos you could try is to visit www.myfonts.com. Type out your brand name, and then browse through the options you like. Then when you find something that works, take a screenshot and then draw over that logo with your pen tool. All that is left to show you is how to use artboards, save files, and export images. The keyboard shortcut for artboards is Shift-O. The great advantage of using Illustrator over InDesign and Photoshop is that you have much more flexibility and control. You can literally define the dimensions and ordering of each artboard. However, when creating presentations, I still recommend using Keynote. From Keynote, you can export to PowerPoint. You also have spell check, and you can embed links when you save to PDF. My approach is to create diagrams, logos, and illustrations in Illustrator, and then to copy and paste those images across to Keynote using Command-V, Command-C. When it comes to exporting graphics, to use for printing, or to use in websites and apps, you need to draw out the appropriate artboards. To do this, just draw a shape, go Command-Shift-O, and click on that shape, and bingo, you have an artboard. To export the image or file, just go to File in the menu bar and select Export. Type in the relevant artboard number, select your file type, and press Export. The other advantage to exporting as a .png rather than as a .jpeg is that you can keep the transparency of your image. Just make sure you select the right option when exporting. The last point to make is that unlike Keynote and PowerPoint, Illustrator doesn't auto-save your work. So make sure you regularly save your Illustrator files. And one more quick tip. If you ever want to compress your PDF file size, you can go to a nifty website called www.smallpdf.com. Right, now on to Photoshop. Just like Illustrator, Photoshop is a monster program with thousands of features. This might seem overwhelming at first, but if you know how to use the essential features, it's actually pretty intuitive. What I mainly use Photoshop for is adjusting image sizes to use for apps and websites. I create and export all the images in Illustrator without bothering about getting the scale perfect. Then I drag the exported graphics into Photoshop. Then I press Command-Alt-I to adjust the dimensions of the image. Once the dimensions are adjusted, I then use the Save shortcut Command-S to save the image. Just in case you are interested, you can use the shortcut Command-Alt-C in Photoshop to edit the canvas size. Another way I use Photoshop is to create GIFs, which are animated images that behave like animations. To create a GIF animated image, select Window and Timeline. Then just play around and remember, when saving your work, make sure you save for web as a .gif file. The other useful tools and features to be aware of in Photoshop are layers, layer masks, merging layers, using filters, the brush tool, and the transform functions. Just like with Illustrator, you also want to create an efficient workspace layout. Basically, you want to have layers and history on the right, and then your tools on the left. If you want to become a power user of Illustrator and Photoshop, then think about investing into a bamboo tablet. With one hand on the keyboard and the other holding your bamboo pen, your Illustrator and Photoshop speed will be immense. Another key point to make is that there are loads of YouTube videos explaining different Illustrator and Photoshop functions. You can also check out the Adobe forums. Just go to www.forums.adobe.com. Right, now on to some design hacking tips. First tip, stick to minimal. Certain types of graphics that have a flat design are much easier and faster to replicate, create, and reuse. Tip 2, less is more. If in doubt, leave more white space. You shouldn't try to cram your slides with information. Tip 3. Avoid starting with a blank page. It is a lot easier to construct visuals quickly if you are working from existing designs and photos. Think of design hacking as just remixing and recombining other people's work. The final point I'd like to make is that coding is a great skill, and if it's something that interests you, go for it. However, it is important to break the myth that in order to make stuff online and build websites, you need to be a developer. This is just not the case anymore. In fact, building websites today is as simple as creating a presentation on PowerPoint or Keynote. You can use web builder tools like Wix.com, Squarespace, or Weebly, and with your newfound design skills, you can make your websites look just as professional as anyone else's. My preference is to use Wix as it gives me the greatest design flexibility, and it's also easy to teach clients how to use. Another useful design hacking habit to develop is to start building a visual library of screenshots, images, and graphics. This is how I organize my visual library. I have a folder for market research screenshots. I have a folder for product inspiration, user experience screenshots. I have a folder of illustrations and icons, which is a great source of inspiration for designing brands, logos, and infographics. I also use the website www.dribble.com with 3 B's for the same purpose. I have a folder for high-resolution photos that I can drop into Keynote presentations. The website www.unsplash.com is a great source of free high-res images. You can also use the Inspect Element tool in your Chrome or Firefox browser to grab high-res images from any website you find. And finally, I have a folder for ready-to-go Illustrator files and presentation files. Over the years, I have also developed a habit where I take an instant Command-Shift-4 Mac screenshot when I see something I like online. This habit makes it possible for me to deliver design work to clients at lightning speed. Now it's time for you to go and start using Illustrator and Photoshop to create your own graphics. It might seem difficult at first. You will get frustrated. However, if you keep going, I promise you that within a month, these tools will become second nature. Good luck.